Have you ever apologized for crying even when you couldn't control it? Have people ever called you too sensitive, too emotional, or told you to stop overreacting? Maybe you've started hiding your tears because somewhere along the way, you were made to believe that crying means you're weak. But what if everything you've been told about crying is completely wrong? What if the people who cry the easiest are not emotionally weaker? What if they're actually experiencing the world in a way that most people never will? Psychologists have spent decades studying human emotions, and what they discovered completely changes the way we should look at tears. People who cry easily often don't have weaker hearts. They have hearts that notice more. They don't just hear words. They hear the emotion behind them. They don't just see pain, they absorb it. And that's exactly why the world often misunderstands them. Because we live in a society that teaches people to hide their emotions instead of understanding them. But here's something fascinating. Many emotionally sensitive people spend years believing there's something wrong with them, when in reality, their brain is simply processing emotions differently. And once you understand what's really happening inside the mind of someone who cries easily, you'll probably never judge tears the same way again. Because the first thing psychology reveals is something almost nobody talks about. The first hidden truth is this: people who cry easily don't feel more emotions. They feel them more deeply. Imagine two people watching the exact same moment. One sees a homeless man sitting alone on the street. The other can't stop thinking about him for the rest of the day. The situation was the same, but their emotional response was not. Psychologists call this high emotional sensitivity. Some people's brains naturally process emotions with greater intensity, which means they don't just notice sadness, they experience it. That's why a small act of kindness can bring tears to their eyes. A heartfelt movie scene can stay with them for days. And a few harsh words can hurt far longer than anyone realizes. The strange part is, most of them don't want to cry. They try to hold it in. They tell themselves, don't cry, not here. But the emotions become so overwhelming that tears are simply the body's way of releasing them. And here's what most people never understand. Crying isn't always a sign that someone is falling apart. Sometimes it's proof that they've been carrying too much for too long. That's why the people who cry the easiest are often the same people who spend the most time pretending they're okay. Because while everyone else sees their tears, nobody sees how hard they've been trying not to cry in the first place. And that leads to something even more surprising. Because their emotions don't only belong to them sometimes. They begin carrying everyone else's emotions too. If you ever walked into a room and instantly felt that something wasn't right, even before anyone said a single word, some people notice facial expressions. People who are highly sensitive notice emotions. A forced smile, a tired voice, a long pause before someone answers. Tiny changes that most people ignore, they notice them almost immediately. And without realizing it, they begin feeling them too. This is why many people who cry easily become emotional after listening to someone else's story. Not because they're dramatic, but because their brain naturally connects with other people's emotions. Psychologists often describe this as having a high level of emotional empathy. It allows someone to understand pain on a much deeper level, but it also comes with a hidden cost. Because when you constantly absorb other people's emotions, you rarely get a break from your own. That's why emotionally sensitive people often feel mentally exhausted, even after spending just a few hours around the wrong people. It's not because they're antisocial. It's because their mind never truly stops processing, and over time, many of them start believing something is wrong with them. They think, why am I the only one who feels everything so deeply? But maybe they're not feeling too much. Maybe everyone else has simply learned to feel less. And that's where the biggest misunderstanding begins. Because society often mistakes emotional sensitivity for emotional weakness. So the next time you think your sensitivity is a weakness, remember, it may be the strongest part of who you are.